no longer silent, patient access stories. Today, we're getting loud with Dr. Leondra Clark Harvey, psychiatrist, executive, and 3-year breast cancer survivor.
When I think back to the moment I got the call from my surgeon, the things that were present were shock and surprise, which was followed by sadness. And then I think typical for many women is a sense of shame. So for me, I had those, initial feelings. And after a year, I decided I'm going to make meaning of this. I'm going to talk about this publicly. I'm going to share with people about my journey. I don't know why this has happened to me, but I believe everything happens for a reason. So that's where I was at in my initial stages of hearing the news and making plans on how I was going to kind of cope with it. I wanted to spread awareness. And so what I started doing was finding funny t-shirts about having breast cancer and losing your breast, having a double mastectomy. And so for 20 weeks after my double mastectomy, I wore a different t-shirt every week that's had a funny saying on it. But it was, and I posted it on social media because I wanted people to notice. I wanted to start a conversation and to start it with laughter. And then I decided, as things settled in, probably a year or two into the multiple surgeries I had to have, and as my scars literally began to bubble up and not heal well, that I needed to do something else, because people saw the t-shirts and they laughed and they saw me being strong and they saw me continuing to work and, do everything that I do in my professional and personal life. But what I hadn't shared very transparently was the hard moments in the middle of the night when my scars were literally burning and I was crying and sitting in my bathroom for hours. And I decided, I hate how these scars look. I feel mutilated. I look mutilated. And I need to do something to deal with this. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And it struck me when I was standing in my hallway at home and looking at some family photos on the wall that all the photos were really nice and, we're smiling and it's, holiday time or, my kids' school photos. But maybe I could use photography to capture the moment that I was in. And I felt that I was slipping into a bit of depression. And I thought, well, how can I use photography? And so I decided to call my friend who does our annual Christmas photo. And I said, I'm in a bad space. I don't know if you do other types of photos, but I have an experiment I'd like you to embark on with me. And I said, just come over, bring a backdrop. We'll take pictures in my room and we'll see what happens. But I knew that there would be some healing that would come if I took pictures, if I documented what was happening to me in the moment. And so she came by and she took raw pictures of me in the nude of all the scars all over my body. And it was healing in itself to stand there in front of that canvas and to just reflect and to be there. I wasn't smiling. There was no makeup on my scars. There was no cover up. It was just my scars and me and the camera. It's not going to create a laugh, but maybe it'll stop someone in their tracks and make them see that we're all multidimensional. We can be strong. We can laugh about things. We can pursue and persevere. And we can also be in a lot of pain and reflect that in a way that can be instrumental and hopefully helpful to someone in their journey. And for me, it was important because it was really a whole representation, right? I went from, I'm going to get through this and be strong and, spread awareness to I'm having a really bad moment. I'm slipping into depression and I need you all to see this because I'm not okay. In my late 20s, early 30s, I started seeing these commercials on TV for these tests that you could take at home. You can order them, do all types of different genetic testing and screening. And it was around the time that a lot of buzz was happening around the BRCA gene. And my maternal aunt, my mom's sister, had passed because of breast cancer that metastasized. She had done chemo, she had done radiation, she had had mastectomy surgery, and still in the end, she succumbed to a brain tumor. And so I always had in the back of my head, it's important. This might be something that runs in our family and you need to get tested. And when the BRCA test, the at-home test came out, I ordered one immediately. And I remember how relieved I felt when I got the results back and there was nothing detectable genetically. I felt really safe for years. And when I fast forwarded to, right after I turned 40 and got that call, my heart just sank and I didn't understand, because shortly after finding out about my diagnosis, I got a call from my mother who said she had stage 4. And she was immediately sent into treatment, chemo, radiation, double mastectomy, the whole thing. So while I was having these t-shirts and laughing and being very public about it and trying to spread awareness, the story I couldn't tell was my family story. Now, my mother and I both took not only the BRCA test, but other genetic tests as well. Nothing at all hit. And what that leads me to believe is that there's just a lot that hasn't been discovered out there, and especially for Black women. It can't be a coincidence that my mom, her sister, myself, and others on my dad's side as well have either succumbed to breast cancer or survived it, but have definitely been diagnosed with it. And so in many ways, there's a lot of meaning to make out of my story, but there's a lot of context that helps me be strong, because when I look at my mom and I see the port in her heart, her chemo, her radiation, everything that she's had to go through, and other women in my family and community as well, it's made me realize that I'm fortunate to have early detection, to be able to be in a position where I could take a year and make a decision on if I was going to move forward and what types of different treatments and options that I would pursue. Not everybody has that, but it is truly that hidden story in the background that helped me feel strong and able to move forward and to be public and to be really grateful in the midst of something that could be potentially crippling emotionally for many people.
We want to pause for a moment to thank our platinum partner, Amgen. Amgen has been a consistent partner who not just talks the talk, they fight hard to illuminate voices and experiences of diverse patients. We're truly thankful for such a beautiful partnership. This conversation is also activated by Genentech and Change for Sean. Thank you to all of our partners.
The other thing that I noticed is as I began to talk publicly and share, that folks started to send me inbox messages. And I noticed a trend among African American women of my mom's generation. Many of them said, "Oh my goodness, I saw your post online. I could never do that." Or, "Kudos to you. I had breast cancer and never told anybody." Or, "Just last year during the pandemic, I went through all of this treatment and hid it and no one knew." These were many of them prominent women in the community who I had spent a lot of time with, definitely looked up to, and had no idea at all. As I looked at that, I started to realize the pattern here is that these women are of the same generation. They're African American. What is it about that generation of women where there was so much shame and stigma that they couldn't bring themselves to even share about this very impactful thing and worked so hard to hide it? And I quickly moved from a place of kind of judgment about that to realizing that in their time, many of them were trying to prove and that they could wear the shoulder pads in the boardroom like men were doing. They were trying to break the glass ceiling. So having breast cancer was something that there was no tolerance for and no room to share. They didn't have the luxury and privilege of being vulnerable like I was being. And so that really reconceptualized things for me in many ways, to see that women of certain generations had to deal with a lot of other things, a lot of other difficulties. And having breast cancer, among other things, is not something that they felt they could be open about. It was something that they felt they would be judged for and potentially encounter losses professionally and personally if they did share. And so I do hope that in being outspoken and sharing things in a humorous way and also sharing things that are really hard will help people understand across generations that we are at a point where we can be much more open, we can share, and we can help heal each other. And my mom was one of those women. I came out, I shared what happened. My mom waited until after her chemo and radiation when she rang that bell to share what she'd been through in the prior year. And I know that my journey and everything I went through and her watching me and watching reactions to me is what helped her finally be courageous enough to do that in her own time, in her own way. Mm-hmm. So I respect everyone's journey and the decisions they make around it and being public or not. But I do hope that people, through my experience, will start to see that we are in a different time and space and place, and it is okay to share more openly. It is okay to be vulnerable, and that there are people that have done that and will support them in that.
Just so beautiful. Wow. I am just so honored and grateful and thankful that you said yes to this and that you said yes to your mom, and just even reflecting in my own time and space with your mom's journey. Your mom's journey was extreme. And it's rare that we bump into a patient that we can't help no matter where they are. We've literally helped patients around the world, and your mom's journey was just very difficult. And just knowing that she's on the other side of that, there just are no words. It's just honor and gratitude and respect for her. And I know the impact that her journey had on you.
Though a lot of people have said, you're really strong and you're really brave, I've also carried around this guilt, and I carried it from the very beginning, and it almost kept me silent because I didn't feel like a real victim. I didn't have to do chemo. I didn't have to do radiation. I was early enough that they told me, you know what? You don't even have to do a double mastectomy. You can probably take medications or just monitor it every 6 months for the rest of your life. And at one point in my journey, I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. And then after my mom called with her stage 4 diagnosis, I realized I can't. There's too many similarities. I don't care what the genetic tests say. My mom, her sister, my aunts on my dad's side, and now me. There's something that doctors just don't know about what's happening in my family yet. And I have an opportunity to take a very, very big preventive medical process and engage in that. And I chose to do it. Mm-hmm. But the guilt I felt was because I didn't have to do all those other things. And I watched my mom doing all of those other things. And I watched other people struggling. And I felt like if I talked about or complained about my situation, that was not authentic and it wasn't respectful. Mm-hmm. And I had to get over that. And I still have moments where I feel like that when I complain about my scars or things like that. I always try to put it in context, right, of the people in my family and in my community. I also put it in context of people that I saw when I went to the doctor's office. I would see these little kids that were getting their, treatment. They were never crying. They were never feeling sorry for themselves. They were usually bouncing with a lollipop, being wheeled out by their parents to the car. That helped me to continue to put things in perspective, but it also just added to the imposter syndrome that I was experiencing because I felt like I wasn't a true victim. And that's when I realized that psychologist me did not have the answers for myself. And I took up the offer to call Carrie's Touch, to call Tammy, and to say, I'm not a real, patient here, because I still felt like that, but I'm having a tough time. And Reverend Tammy really helped put things in perspective for me and honor my experience in a way that let me know that there was validation in what I was going through and that it was still an important story to tell.
I am giving you the biggest hug, man.
It's okay. I'm receiving it. I feel it.
the biggest hug. You have just been beautiful. You've been brilliant. It's been heart-wrenching. It's been all of the things. Seriously, sincerely, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Leondra Clark Harvey, for pulling back the mask on mental health and mental well-being, and for being vulnerable and transparent in sharing your own story. Thank you to renowned virtual photographer John Keatley and his incredible team. A special thanks to photos by A-Love LLC, April Jones, Retouch Artist, and to the dedicated Carrie's Touch tribe for your unwavering support in helping us create stories that heal. And another big thank you to our platinum sponsor, Amgen. For more information about these stories and other survivor support and advocacy information, visit us at our website at www.carriestouch.org.